Well, you and I talked about this as it happened, and we said that's probably what did happen. And as we find out, it is what happened. The question is, what are they going to do with this person, this lady, who made the false accusations, and is she being interrogated as to why she did what she did? And if she was directed to do so, who directed her? It's a good question.
Well, I've said it, Whitey Bulger, now that he's about to supposedly expose all the feds that ran him, he might fall down a flight of stairs or hit his head. And this lady, she might end up like some of those Clinton people. Remember McDougal dying up in the jail cell in Dallas?
That's right. And of course, the one whose body was found there in Washington, out on the lawn.
Yeah, he had the bullet hole in his head with no blood at the scene. Vince Foster. We'll be right back. All right, I want to go to some of your phone calls for Bob Chapman after we get into some of the other important news today, dealing with the economy with Bob, who's a real expert on that front. But I remember a few weeks ago, a bunch of national media and, of course, Red State and all these sites attacked us, saying we were insane conspiracy theorists for even questioning that Rick Perry went to Bilderberg, or that he would end up being the front runner for president, or that he was even running. I mean, to be able to think and to have sources inside the governor's operation, to have other sources around the country, including national media, to know that he gave a pledge he wouldn't run for president in 2012, and that we told you he would break the pledge because it was never a pledge. It's not like he's changing his mind. It was always his intention. This is Al Gore's former chief of staff in his campaign in Texas. This is for president. This is a guy, Karl Rove, got to flip to Republican. This is a guy that's for forced inoculations, on record, the only governor to publicly push it. This is a guy who's for open borders in the past and been given awards by Vicente Fox for Sanctuary City. And you notice the Sanctuary City bill died. He introduced his bills to kill them. And Ron Paul agreed that's the tactic. So, but it doesn't matter. People like to be conned, so, hey, I understand. It's fun. Romney leads national poll, but Perry debuts in second place. And this is out of Real Clear Politics. Well, they already had polls showing he was in the second place. Depending on the poll, it's Ron Paul's number 1, number 2, or number 3. And Rick Perry now talks and acts like Ron Paul, but he doesn't actually do what Ron Paul did. What do you make of this, Bob Chapman, that the mainline Republican sites are very upset and even chastise the Drudge Report for linking to our stories 2 weeks ago that we would dare to say that Rick Perry was going to run for president, even though we are a real media organization who has real sources?
Well, I think what they're trying to do here, and this will be done in perpetuity, and that is to discourage any outside opinion. And that's what yours is. It's outside the box.
Opinion is now conspiracy theory or breaking news. I mean, if I can say this keyboard is gray, that's a conspiracy theory. I'm not allowed to have any view.
Well, my feeling on that is let them talk all they want. We just keep on doing what we're doing. And but I see a lot of harassment today, particularly of people like yourself, and this is part of it, of this vilification, so that people will start to wonder, well, really, is Alex and Bob, are they that way? Are they conspiracy theorists and really off base? And this is the tack that they're following. And you'll get all of these bogus attacks making up stories about what we're talking about just simply isn't true. And it's going to go on. And you in the past, like myself, we just ignore it. We talked about this a dozen years ago.
No, that's why they're losing credibility.
It's much worse.
Exactly. They're losing credibility because they don't live in the real world, but they get more and more ridiculous is my point, that's major breaking news, that we've got sources that Perry is going to run for president. We've been saying it for almost 4 years on record. It's in my film Endgame. And then the system is so upset by our credibility that they flip it around and say we don't have credibility. So the debate is about, do we have credibility or not, instead of the facts that we're laying out to people. It's a mind trick.
They are terrified. And a few weeks ago, you made the statement, we are breathing down their collar, and they don't like it. And you're absolutely correct. And the greater the breathing is, or the heat down their collar, the more aggressive they're going to get. And, you know, when you were talking about the attack on this young man in Australia, I was thinking of this word usage, and of course you and I use all kinds of word usage, and that's probably how they're going to come at us. You said something about something, and you can't say that, so we're going to pick you up and put you in jail.
Well, they already do that in Canada. I mean, this is modern book burning. This is like arresting you as a heretic. You know, if you're Copernicus and don't think the Earth is flat, or if you're Galileo and you know that the Earth orbits the sun, they just arrest you. I mean, it's right back to what it's always been.
Well, when the Vatican was running things, they excommunicated you. And many of the great minds of history were excommunicated. So it's nothing new. It goes back for centuries. But I think they're getting it down to a fine art and then putting a zinger, a stinger in there, which is, you know, if you say that sort of thing about somebody, like that policeman is a homosexual, then off you go, you get tried, and you get put away for 3 or 4 years, where you will be indoctrinated, and it's just like the communists had in their camps recently. And
well, no, that's what the communists said. They said, you're saying things we don't like, you're going to a re-education camp. I mean, these are re-education, and people are listening right now going, good, it was mean to say that, re-education camp, re-education camp. I mean, it shows how much trouble we're in.
It's very, very serious, and sometimes you can't even convince your close friends and members of your family that it's as dire as it is. They just don't see it, and everybody, out of everybody, only a fraction will ever see it, because their minds just don't work that way, where they can uncover things like this and see through them. It takes a special kind of approach, and most people don't have that.
All right, I want to go to some calls, Bob, but there's a lot of other news floating around right now. The Russian minister, Russian envoy to NATO says, yeah, they're getting ready to go in September, October. We had Tarpley on live and showed live video of what conservatively looked like 500,000 people running around with AK-47s and grenade launchers in the middle of Tripoli, men, women, children, hopping up and down, saying, we're ready. You know, we want peace, but if the tanks come, we're going to fight. I mean, Saddam was a dictator installed by the West, and, you know, he'd have little staged events with a few thousand of his hand-picked people with guns to show, look, I'm not a dictator. No, this was 500,000 people in one square with automatic rifles and grenade launchers saying, bring it on. And, hey, the bankers are going to bring it on. They don't care if they march our Army and Marine people in there and they get killed.
Well, that's absolutely correct. And they're pulling troops out of Afghanistan right now to send them over to Libya. And I get a lot of questions on that yesterday, and, you know, from the Marine disposition. And you know, these are professional people. In our military, they don't want to go and do these things, but they're under contract, and they don't have much choice. They argue, they get court-martialed. Then they go to jail, so what good is that? So they go and put themselves in the line of fire into something that they totally and completely disagree with.
Now, let's look at the economy. More and more, you know, the Financial Times of London on Monday, the dollar will lose its world reserve status, but they say 25 years to introduce the idea to us. The Chinese say the dollar's already dead as a world reserve, but the other currencies are falling. Greece has rolled over to the austerity. Break down the current economic geopolitical landscape.
Well, one of the factors that we have to talk about when we talk about the dollar, and it's a very important. In the last 11 years, every year, 9 major currencies fell on average more than 20% versus gold and silver. So if the dollar goes down against the pound or the euro or any currency, it's important. But what's really important is all of the currencies are going down in varying degrees versus gold and silver. And that's extremely important. People don't look at it that way. They don't understand because no one ever tells them. But versus other currencies, you've just seen the dollar back off into 74.5 approximately. The USDX index, which is 6 major currencies versus the dollar. And that's really not going to get any better, even though England and the countries in Europe and many other countries got similar problems. The government in the United States has seen fit, along with the Federal Reserve, to so overburden the American economy and the dollar with this tremendous debt that there's no way that the dollar can appreciate. It's going to continue to depreciate. And that's the bag that we're into. And unless something is done to stop that, which is more than anything else speculation by Wall Street, it's going to continue. And I think that they want it to continue because they want to be able to pay off their debts with cheaper money. And this is what they're up to.
And we see them, as you said, every time they want a new, quote, bailout, which is really just another robbery. Every time that happens, we see another news article. Oh, ratings agency, U.S. to lose its credit rating. You know, if you don't give the bankers more money. So it's just endless. I mean, they're not going to stop.
Well, a good example of that is what you and I and Max have just seen over in Greece, and everybody knows what's happened there. What I'm terribly afraid of now is this could very well lead to violence and revolution in Greece. And I think there's a distinct possibility of that. We have a lot of subscribers here who are connected, and they tell us that it could very well happen. So we'll see what happens over the next few weeks. But that sort of thing, if it happened in Greece, would spread all over Europe and to the United States.
Your phone's crackling a bit, Bob, but you're...
Yeah, I know. We got the big storms in my area.
Let's go ahead and talk to G2 in Illinois. G2, welcome.
Welcome. Bob, I want to throw you a couple of powder puffs because my female hormones are up. I've been drinking lake water out of plastic bottles. Number one, you mentioned Greece. Those demonstrators, you can go on the Internet. They're agent provocateurs, and that was sham opposition in Greece. Check it out. Second big story.
Well, hold on, G2, because you're making these big statements. You're talking about bisphenol A, admittedly turning all mammal species, males, quote, feminine. Then the mice release a pheromone that they're feminine, and then the females won't mate with them. And people need to understand it's in all the major printer cartridge ink, all the major brands, most of the printer ink at the store. It's in most of the plastic we drink out of. Okay, A. Okay, serious issue. B. They've had millions of people on the streets of Greece. Yes, the police have been caught breaking out windows and setting fires to things, even on mainline Greece television. Are you saying all the protesters were agent provocateurs?
No, but it's on the Internet, and Greek TV's got them because they led away some guys with a tattoo. One of them had a left tattoo on his left
No, I understand, but I mean, what's your view of the austerity? What's your view of what happened to Greece?
Well, you're talking about Shin Bet against Sinn Féin, and you're talking about the GF2, the Gaza Flotilla 2. They just had sabotage down there. There's some Irish ship. It's called Sawarza. It's Gaelic for freedom. The drive shaft was cut and the rudder was cut off. And then this followed Monday, Tuesday, days after the sabotage, the Juliana in Piraeus Harbor, Athens, Greece, where the propeller and the drive shaft were cut up.